Today, I have something super special for you. You are going to get to meet my husband. We are going onto our 8th year of marriage, which began in our cockroach-infested apartment in the Bronx when I was just starting my business. Here is my beautiful husband, Steven. Today, we are going to do a Q&A and share some stories on important topics, like how he feels about my earning more, why he is not involved in my business at all, and how we worked through my early years when I was so stressed and working nonstop. I'm going to start with the questions, but quick side note because we did zero prep beforehand to keep this real. Pro tip, hun, you always have the shortest responses ever. Just pretend like we're talking and try to give a bit more elaboration and make this a fun combo, okay?
Okay. I love that one-letter answer.
First, because this is something we went through, what advice do you have to give for someone who is starting a business and want their partner to respect that what they're doing is a serious use of their time versus a waste?
So I think the first thing is about trust. You have to trust that your partner knows what he or she is doing and that they have done their research and due diligence in making sure that our business is actually viable.
Quick side note here, and we only have one microphone because I forgot to prepare two beforehand. But do you remember the conversations that we had about how you weren't treating my business seriously enough in the beginning and how we addressed that?
No, I actually don't remember.
Okay, that's awesome. So that's because it doesn't make him look super good. I'm just going to tell you guys. When we first started out and I was working at home, Steven would kind of just treat me like I was just at home and could run errands all the time. So he'd say, hey, can you go and grab this thing or run this errand or do this thing? And I actually had to sit him down and say, hey, I know I'm at home all the time, but that doesn't mean I'm just sitting around doing nothing. I just work at home, but literally the hours that I'm working, I am working. So I'm happy to help out when we need to, but let's make sure it's outside of my work hours. Next time something like that happens to you, I have a Luisism for you. Work time is for work, even if you are working from home. Next question. Our first few years sucked. I know I have memories of what it was like, but what are your memories of it?
At that time, I was working so much that it was all kind of a blur anyways.
Steven just forgot the question. The question was, our first few years sucked. I remember what it was like. What are your memories of it?
So at that time, I was working so much anyways, it was kind of a blur. But the things that I do remember were coming home to a hot mess. Papers everywhere, sticky notes on the walls, every single wall except for the ceiling, just junk everywhere, pens everywhere, paper scraps in the corner, random whiteboards showing up and then getting thrown away, and notepads everywhere, just kind of like that all over.
I also want to add on to that a little bit because the first few years, even though I was making really good money, I was investing most of it back into the business. And you weren't making a ton back then either. So it was tough. I know what my mentality was, that we were working together towards our future and it was okay. I was happy to invest back into the business because I knew ultimately there were so many big goals that we had. But from your perspective, what things could you share for your experience or any tips that you have for people who are going through that time themselves?
I'm not gonna lie, but there were times where I had my doubts. I was like, what's the point of working so hard if the net work is zero? But like I said earlier, at the end of the day, it's all about trust. I trusted in my spouse and I believed in her, and you have to just maintain that trust.
This is important. I believe you deserve to be supported when you're building your business because when you succeed, everyone around you benefits. What's one simple thing you have done or can do to get the support that you deserve? Let me know in the comments. I am really excited to see. Moving on to the next question. People are afraid that as they grow, their spouses won't be able to grow with them. I was afraid of that too, but I think we've done pretty well with that. Why do you think that is?
I think we maintain very clear lines of communication. There are definitely times where I felt that we were growing very quickly, whether it was socially, emotionally, or financially. But through talking it out with you, we were able to make small compromises. And although they're compromises, they're still moving towards our ultimate goal.
Do you have an example specifically?
I think the one that comes to my mind is kind of my clothes. At the time, I had clothes that were from high school and college, and probably even a few shirts from middle school that still fit me. And my mentality was, why would I ever need to buy new clothes? However, as we moved on through life and increased our status, our jobs, and our finances, we had to also elevate what we look like. My older mentality was very reluctant in changing these things because it was how I was raised, always to save and to never waste. But through small compromises, I updated my wardrobe and eventually slowly looked the part.
I want to dig into this a bit more because, as I said, I know this is a really common concern for a lot of people that I've heard from over the years. As I've built my business, I've become fairly successful, fairly respected and known in my field, and I've built the confidence that comes with that. So I own my business. I'm a CEO. I make a fair amount of money. And the reason I'm going on is not because to say I'm so amazing, but the confidence that comes with that is different compared to where you are. Stephen is very good at what he does, but he's at a more normal pace and trajectory given our age. Do you sometimes feel that there's maybe a disparity in that I'm too confident or that I'm growing too quickly? And how do you feel about that? And just share what's coming up for you.
For me, I think it's a great thing. I think when one looks for a partner or a spouse, a life partner, you have to find someone who will help, work around your strengths and weaknesses. So, my weakness is maybe not as confident and as outgoing as I could be. However, as you grew in your business and you're able to increase your own confidence, I am able to grow with you. So it's kind of like what your strengths are will eventually become my strengths as well.
That's a really good way of thinking about it. So I really hope you took that away, that it's not that one person will outgrow the other. If you're committed, you're communicating, you're maybe sometimes doing some compromise, but really it's that each person's growth elevates the other. So it's kind of like a springboard. You just continue to bounce off of each other. I really like that.
And I want to interject here. Whenever we say compromise, we always feel that it has a negative connotation. But I feel that done the right way, compromise is just another tool towards your end goal.
That's a really good point. It's not a negative thing. And I hope you are starting to see a little bit how Stephen is kind of calm and a little bit more measured compared to my higher energy. And that really helps us balance out as well. We all know one of our beliefs in LZ land is dream big and make it happen. But there are so many ways to do that. Stephen really loves what he does. And I remember specifically you said to me, I just want to do my job well. I don't want to build a business or invent something. And I have so much respect for that. And it's important to point out our partnership comes from each of us doing what we're meant to do and what we love to do. Neither person's jobs or goals are bigger than the others. This next question is a really fun one. I know I always share that I work really hard and don't give up, and I just keep on attacking a problem until I solve it. But you having seen me build my businesses and all my ups and downs over the past decade, what's the thing that has stuck out the most to you?
I would definitely say the resilience. There's been many times where, I don't know if I should tell you that I really had my doubts many times. But, I trusted you and you trusted yourself. And I'm sure you had doubts yourself during those times, but you pulled through. And it's just all about being diligent, resilient, and just pushing through.
By the way, this is the first time I'm learning while being recorded, by the way, that you ever had doubts about me. Steven has never shared that. And I think that's a really important note. He has always come across as being incredibly supportive of me. So he hid his doubts well. And I think that's important to note. It's okay to have doubts. I mean, I've had my own doubts, like you said, many, many times, but that support from you has always been there. Steven has never said, hey, do you think you should give up? Do you think you're not meant for this? I mean, he knows I wouldn't have accepted that anyways, but he never communicated that. He always made me feel like I could go out there and do what I needed to do to figure things out and make it happen. And I really appreciate that part. We're getting super real now. Honestly, do you mind that I earn more? Why or why not?
So I'll answer that question in a second. But going back to the doubts, so the only reason why I knew anything about Luisa's business was because at the time, some of the credit cards she used were my credit cards. And let's just say I have never seen so many numbers, negative numbers, on my account before until then. And I was just thinking, what are we doing right now? But I never told her that.
I just want to add on to this a little bit of clarification. At that time, I didn't have enough credit on my own credit cards because I was running a lot in paid advertising. And so I was scaling my ad spend and I said, hey, Steven, I know you have a credit card you're not using. Can I borrow it? That's what was going on. I paid it all off, but yeah, Steven got to see it on his account.
They even called me to make sure the charges were not fraudulent. So then going back to your question about how do I feel that you're making more than me, if I'm concerned or not, I never understood when one partner feels, bad that the other partner makes more. Because at the end of the day, it's a partnership. So if one person wins, both people win. So kudos to you. I'm super happy you make what you do.
Thank you. I have to say, I've never felt like I needed to bring down my power or not own what I wanted to do and where I was to make you feel better about yourself. And I really appreciate that. So I want to call that out. I also think thinking about what Steven just said, maybe it helps because of our background and culture. Growing up, I grew up in a household where my dad was the only bread earner, but my mom stayed at home and raised us, cooked. I mean, she did everything. And there was never any interaction between my parents that made it feel like my dad had the power because he was making the money. In fact, it was kind of the other way around. A lot of the time, my mom would actually be the deciding factor in things. And I think that really helped propagate this wealth as well for us, where, like you said, it's a partnership. We actually keep our bank accounts separate and finances separate just because it's easier, given that I spend a lot more and we have very different spending habits. But we also have our joint accounts too. And so I think what that does is it really helps us feel that we are responsible for our own things, but at the same time, really it's our money, our future. I mean, it's our life together. So like Steven said, the more one person wins, the more the other person wins as well. Random fun question. When I say Mikimoto, what does that bring up for you? What story does that bring up for you?
I know that you write Mikimoto a lot in your newsletters, but I don't actually remember the story. I probably should.
Like I said, zero prep beforehand, being really real with you guys. That's sad. I thought he was going to be able to share the really fun story with you guys for why I use that term so much in my videos and my newsletter. So I will share it because it's just a fun story. The story goes that for years, I don't know why I started saying this, but I've said to everyone around me when I give them advice, there's another pearl of wisdom. I say this especially a lot to my younger sister. And she has an amazing sense of humor. One day, as I was saying, hey, there's another pearl of wisdom for you, she just looked at me and said, yeah, another Mikimoto. And the way she said it, I didn't do it right, but she said in a way that made me laugh. And we were on a video call and Steven was there and I just repeated the story to him at that moment, which is why that he would remember, but he forgot. And since then, that is why I use the term, hey, here's a Mikimoto for you, or hashtag Mikimoto, because it's just a really beautiful inside family moment that I also wanted to share with you and pass on. Speaking of more personal things, what is your favorite part about the fact that I have my own business?
Honestly, the flexibility. My job is pretty set in the schedule. So then if we ever needed to work around our schedules, you're always able to schedule your work as you see fit. And I think that's a luxury that not everyone has.
Yeah, I had a feeling you would say that. And I want to add on to it a little bit because it is so important, especially if you're working on building your business. Things are hard right now and you need a little bit of more motivation for the light at the end of the tunnel. I think my favorite part as well is the abundance of time and flexibility. So Steven has really weird work hours, and sometimes he will text me at like 10 or 11, hey, I'm getting off work. Do you want to come and meet me? So we'll take Falco and we'll go and find a random place to have brunch just in the middle of the day because that's when he's off and I can just take off and meet him at any point. And I think that's really special because otherwise, if I had more normal working hours, we'd probably see each other a lot less, to be honest. So that's the good part. But of course, it's not all rainbows and sunshine. So what is your least favorite part?
I think it would have to be the spend, because it's I guess it's a part of business and I don't really quite understand it as well. But, you have to invest in yourself and in your business. So it may seem like that the net is not as much, but it is an investment in itself. Whereas like a traditional job, you don't really invest your money into something else. So it just goes straight into your bank account.
Yeah, it's a really good point. You can see the big difference in mentality where Steven is very much a saver, and I really appreciate that about you because I am not. I do also want to clarify when Steven says that it feels like the net is lower, that's just because he is used to 100% of what you make going into your pocket, whereas with the business, again, like Steven said, we haven't really talked about this, but my profit margins are very high as they are. And it's just part of the norm, which I absolutely believe. I say this and you're seeing that I walk my talk, which is great always, that I believe in investing in yourself, your people, your business to grow. And frankly, I enjoy it. Just goes to show I was ultimately meant to be an entrepreneur, and Steven is amazing and exactly where he's meant to be as well. Getting even more personal. You see how I am in my business. I don't hold anything back and I'm very real, but it's different. What is a story that you would like to share with my peeps so that they can see a bit more of my whole personality?
So I've complained about this a lot, but I shall share the story now. So, at the time when Luisa was first starting out, I had a stipend for food and drinks, and I had stockpiled an entire fridge full of sodas that I look forward to at the end of the day. I'll drink 1 or 2 cans of soda. Within the first week of Luisa moving in, she had literally obliterated my entire supply of stock sodas within 1 to 2 days, without telling me, mind you. So then when I came back one night and I was like, man, I would really love to drink some soda, I opened the fridge and there was not a single can of soda left. And to this day, I still complain about it.
I feel like you just used that story to complain about me. What does that say about my personality?
You go all in, all or nothing.
Okay, good save. But I don't know about that one. Let's do one more story.
I can think of 2 other stories. Well, I think of many stories, but I'll share 2 for now. So I'm sure you've heard about the story of the cockroach water.
Not everyone has.
Oh, so basically, Luisa had been working all day, and, during her calls and recordings, she gets very thirsty. So we had a Brita water filter, and she hadn't even actually noticed it at the time. But when I came home, I went to go refill her water filter, and there was actually a cockroach swimming around in it. And so that was the story of how Luisa had to drink cockroach water to get the business off the floor. Another story would just show, I guess, your diligence and resilience is, on top of the cockroach water, is that after I come home after very, very long shifts, you would be in the same spot that I left you. And I don't know if you ever ate or drank or left the spot the entire time I was gone. And then I would pass out and go to sleep and you would still be doing your thing.
So to add a little bit on to the second story, which I've shared before, I think that's really good to point out. Nowadays, I talk about having a freedom business and really flexible hours and incredible income and growing multiple businesses. But I always want to make it clear, this was not overnight. This was a decade in the making, and it's still progress or work in progress. And so I think it's one thing to hear it from me, though, to say that. I think it's another thing, and even better to hear it from someone who witnessed it. So it just hones it in even more that, yes, there is a lot of work that is required. It's absolutely worth it, but it's not a walk in the park, especially in the beginning. So the second takeaway is really good, but I'm really curious. I have shared the cockroach water story before, but I'm curious what you think that sharing that you wanted to share about my personality for that story.
I mean, I think it just shows that it doesn't matter what the obstacle is, how gross or how inconvenient, you just deal with it.
Okay, that's fair. And I just want to clarify, I did notice. I noticed, but I was on a call. So I kept on going because I couldn't just stop the call because I was leading it. And then I went and Listerined my mouth for like an hour afterwards. So great image for you. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A and got some really great insights. Let me know in the comments, would you like to see more of this type of content? If so, what would you like to see? Let me know. I can't wait to read your comments because chances are pretty good that I will go out and create it.
He wants to be on the interview. Say hello.
Oh, hello. Say hi. Say hi, baby.